Welcome to Subramani. This could be a very advanced lecture or a very simple lecture as you make it out to be. What triggered this also is, if you remember, Shyam Shekhar and I had done some lectures, some videos, including saying how people have added value to shareholders. So what can the company do, what can any company do to improve your return as a shareholder, right? Simple question. So first of all, what do you get from a company? You get dividends. They could do a share buyback, which adds value to your the shares that you hold, and or they could run the business very efficiently, which means they keep reinvesting some of the money in the business where the ROI is greater than their cost of funds. So if they're borrowing money at 8%, if they're getting 13, 14, 15% or 20% or anything more than that, that's fantastic. That's the kind of return that you expect. If they can do that, then you don't want dividends, you don't want buyback, you don't want anything of that sort. So how do you improve the operational fund flow or the operational cash flow? So obviously you get to do the right things well. So first of all, like all of us, corporate should pay tax more efficiently. They should make sure that they take all the benefits of depreciation rules, etc., putting up a plant in the backward area, whatever has to be done. So you see some very efficient tax players like Supreme Industries, Reliance, etc., which have done that very well. You want them to do it. It's not as though you don't want them to do it. Of course, with changing rules, changing laws, changing governments, you could have some minimum tax or any of those things, but largely you want them to be as tax efficient as possible. Second, you want them to be very efficient in the business in which they are. So which means you want them to keep on improving the working capital, building moats so that if you make a product, it stays with you longer, right? Creating such products, creating such services, making sure that you reach all the places. For example, there is no point in somebody like me advertising because I don't have the distribution reach. Whereas if I were a vice president in, say, HDFC Bank, it makes sense for me to go and advertise, come on television and show off my card, right? So, and say, because the reach is there, you will find them in all the nooks and corners of the country, maybe even State Bank of India, right? State Bank of India has a far greater reach than all of the private sector banks. So then it makes sense to advertise. So whatever you do, increasing your distribution, increasing your efficiency, paying lesser taxes, improving by creating better products, improving the working capital cycle, getting better quality people, you want them to do all of this so that the earnings improve, right? Simple. So if only when the earnings improve and they generate a cash flow and they pay taxes as efficiently as possible, I'm not talking of tax evasion, but doing a proper tax planning, all this creates value. So the company has to be cash flow positive for you and me as shareholders to make money, because we are minority shareholders. We are not sitting in the management and collecting a salary and using the company's expenses. We don't have access to that, and therefore we are not doing it. It's not that we don't want to do, but we can't do, right? So this is what you're expecting from the management. One more thing which companies have done very well, and I'll give you an example of a company which has failed. A company like eBay is struggling to fight the Amazons of the world, but one good thing they did is they spun off PayPal, right? So when you can be sitting there and create companies which can go and dominate the world, or at least the country, you're doing a fantastic value add to the shareholder. So a great example is HDFC Limited. HDFC Limited, if you look at HDFC Limited just as a mortgage company, there is something wrong with you. It is the same company which has promoted HDFC Bank, HDFC Mutual Fund, HDFC Life Insurance, and then they had Group Finance, right? So now then everything got merged, that got merged into Bandhan Bank, so they are holding a portion of Bandhan Bank. They are also accidentally holding 10% in Yes Bank, right? So Yes Bank, of course, is an acquisition. Bandhan Bank accidentally happened because of Group Finance being sold to them. But the other companies which they have promoted have all done extremely well and added a lot of value to you as a shareholder. So it is not just the dividend that they pay or the buyback that they do, but if they can create subsidiaries, or if they can incubate small companies without hurting the main company. Remember that it's charted off as a pure mortgage company. It would take fixed deposits. Even today it does. It has a 7.5% interest scheme of accepting fixed deposits even today. That is the main purpose of the company, why the company was formed. But the company also created a fantastic portfolio of its own, which included outside companies like, say, a Carborundum Universal or a Coromandel International or things like that, that used to be there in their portfolio. Apart from that, they created other subsidiaries, spun it off, gave you some shares as a shareholder of HDFC Limited. You got a share, you got a chance to buy HDFC Life, HDFC Bank, HDFC Mutual Fund, right? All those companies got listed. Similarly, they have one company called HG Bank, which is a part of the HDFC group now, because it's part of HDFC Bank, because all these companies are now part of HDFC Bank. HDFC Securities, these are the forthcoming IPOs. So you sit here, you create value in your main business, use that to create subsidiaries which create value. This is another fantastic way of returning money to shareholders. Similarly, Reliance is also doing the same thing, right? Jio could be spun off separately. Reliance Retail could be spun off separately. Reliance has got something in healthcare that could be spun off separately, right? So you can create value for your shareholders by doing these three things. Of course, you want them to do a buyback, you want them to do a bonus. Bonus really doesn't really put too much in your hand, but it creates a bigger market. More people will come and buy because the per unit cost goes down. That is one way. You want them to pay nice big dividends, and there are some stages when you don't want dividends. So I am happy to hold two shares, one which pays dividend and one which doesn't pay dividend. Like if I am holding TCS, I know I am going to get dividend, and the other share that I could hold could be Facebook, which does not pay dividend. That's fine. I want one company to plow back and one company to return my money because they don't know what to do with it. So this has to be done, and it has to be done very smoothly, seamlessly, without hurting the main business. There is one pharma company which is unable to do it, and the market is just ripping it apart. The PE is gone for a toss, right? The share has fallen by a huge amount. The company has another associate company which is doing well, which is not taking its main money out to do something else, right? So it's very important that when you create value, your main business does not get affected. So this is another way of creating wealth for the shareholder. One of the ways of generating more cash is, of course, improving operational efficiency. For example, if you are an Indigo airline, the very important thing that you can do is start flying to more foreign locations, because the profitability is more. Even the sandwich that you sell in the aircraft for 200 rupees suddenly goes for $10, right? So you make money on every count by flying to foreign countries. So if you are an airline, you are more happy flying to, say, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, at least, because you have smaller aircrafts which can't fly too long, rather than fly from Bombay to Delhi, Madras, Delhi, Chennai and Kolkata. Obviously, you make more money. So getting more operational efficiencies. Taking assets off and just selling them off because you don't need them. You have an office which you have bought and you find that it is cheaper to rent, or you don't want a 15,000 square foot office, you want only 5,000 square foot because you are allowing a lot of people to work from home. So getting rid of inefficient assets, or assets which are not giving you the ROI which you are getting in your business. If the real estate is appreciating at, say, 4%, and the ROI that you're getting on your equity, or return on equity that you're getting, or return on assets that you're getting is 15-16%, it makes no sense to hold on to an asset which is giving you 4% appreciation. You might as well sell it off and take a place on rent. Maybe in a city like Mumbai, you don't want one office, you may want 3 offices of 5,000 square foot instead of one office of 15,000 square foot. Whatever it is, improving operational efficiency by selling off assets which you don't need. That is what eBay did with PayPal. They still made money because the shareholders of eBay got 1 share of PayPal for every share of eBay that they held. So that is another another way of efficiently making money for the shareholder. So I can't think of many more things, but I think I'll do one more episode on this, saying what are the other things that a company can do to improve the return that the shareholder gets, because only after doing all this will you be able to improve the return for the end user. Now another thing which you can do is increase the expected value of growth. Now suppose you are a company which is in mortgage, but you enter some other digital business, for example Reliance. Reliance Jio, if listed, will get a much higher PE than what Reliance Industries gets, because Reliance Industries is still treated as a commodity player. Let's face it, the big cash flow is still oil, right? So right now, if oil is more buoyant, Reliance shares will be up. But once retail is spun off separately and Jio is spun off separately, the PE for those companies could be much higher, and for all you know, Jio could be listed in Nasdaq instead of being listed in India, right? I have no clue whether they're going to do that, but that will improve your valuation dramatically, because suddenly you'll have a subsidiary which is valued by Nasdaq in USG. So which means it becomes a hedge against your dollar also for some portion of your investment. So that's one thing which you can do. And constantly improving the return on your investments. Somebody sitting in the company's finance department is sitting and just checking, should you be investing more in projects, should you be investing in more projects at all, should you be doing some acquisition, it's called M&A, but largely, do you want to acquire assets? Remember, your currency is worth much more than the currency of anybody else. When I say your currency, I mean your equity shares. Today, if TCS wants to acquire a company, once upon a time it would have had to generate so much of cash flow to buy it. Today it can just go and give away 100,000 shares of its company, of TCS. Tata Sons can go acquire a company by just giving away shares of TCS and taking that company and giving it to TCS, right? Something can be done. TCS can issue fresh shares because the shares are quoting at a premium in the market, right? So you have that cash. How to use it more efficiently? Should you do acquisition? Should you do a 400 crore acquisition? Should you do a 500 crore acquisition? I recently heard of Apollo acquiring a friend's Ayurvedic, I wouldn't call it business, profession. Obviously Apollo can add more value. Now if this person was selling a 7-day package for something like 75,000 or 1 lakh, I'm sure Apollo can go and sell it for 2.5-3 lakhs. That's the way you use your brand, you use your leverage, buy it and get more. Obviously if I make a software and I'm selling it for 50,000 rupees in the market, TCS branding it can easily sell it for say 3 lakhs in the market. So obviously the 2.5 lakhs is the brand value of TCS. So making more effective usage of your assets, which includes your brand name, using it to acquire, right? Then having the cash flow which will allow you to enter new markets and generate. For example, Bharti Airtel tried to enter Africa. They lost money, but they still had the ability to go through with it, and now they are playing a decent and important role in Africa, right? Similarly, Birlas and Tatas had enough cash flow to write off the losses that they made in telecom. Arcom, Jio is making money, Arcom didn't make money, right? So all those things, so developing new products, putting it in the market, you have the guts to do it, you have the ability to do it, you have the cash flow to do it. So without hurting the main cash flow, if you can do all these things, these are various ways of giving money to the shareholder and creating value for the shareholder. You can really create wealth for the shareholder by doing all this and doing it as efficiently. So it is not just dividend that you should look for in a company. Of course, dividends are important because we want something coming back. We want to know that the cash flow is genuine. We want some bonuses to reduce, to make sure that the availability of the share is more. For example, MRF. Not everybody is going to be able to buy an MRF. So people just don't buy, and there is no fraction shares in India. Now, if MRF were to issue a couple of bonus, 2-3 bonuses, or maybe a huge bonus, and split the share and make sure that it's more available, maybe the PE will go up, maybe the PE will go down. I'm not getting into it, but that's one way of returning money to the shareholder. So these are the various methods by which you can create value for the shareholder by doing these things differently, and making sure that the ROIC that you get is better than the cost of funds that you have. I may do one more video because I think there are some more things to talk about. Thank you.